And good morning, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin, and welcome to my channel. It's called McDuff Lives, and channel is here to celebrate the life of my father and to investigate the untimely death of my father, as well as to use the time we have together to explore our common heritage, our common destiny as Americans and as people around the world who look to America as the only hope for mankind. And we see this hope being um, threatened and even nearly extinguished in our own lifetimes. And those of us that see it happening can't help but react and to stand up and say, wait, don't don't let this happen. This thing we have is too precious. This Constitution, this Declaration of Independence, this Lincoln, this heritage, this idea of government of, by, and for the people. You can't just throw that away and not see and not stand up and see and say something. So that's why, get up, stand up. Get up, stand up. That's my theme song, I guess. Bob Marley is right. You know, he is right. Hello, Simon from Slovenia. Oh man, I think Slovenia's got to be a beautiful, beautiful place. I would love to go there. Um, the closest I ever got, like most people, is Venice, and Venice is kind of a place that you want to see once in your life, or maybe as I did, I saw it as a 30-year-old, and then I went back as a 55-year-old. So, but both times, it's a great, amazing trip to take, but not a place to expect to stay for very long, because that's very expensive, but it's beautiful. But anyway, no, I'd like to get on around the Adriatic and to Slovenia, and so great. Hello, Tyrone. Good to have you here. Hello, everybody. Really, big question today is, what's going on at the Capitol? Why do we have these fences and all this stuff around it? And I ventured my opinion out on my social media this morning. I said it's a coup. It's look, it looks like a coup. You got troops around the Capitol that are with a fortified fence with concertina wire on top of it, and you can't it's not a civil government. It's a military occupation. People don't want to recognize this, but it is a military occupation. And how could it be anything else but a coup? And I guess the sad thing is that in my own mind, in my own analysis, that it's not this event that is the coup, the one that took down the Republic. That was the coup of the assassination of President Kennedy, which did involve foreign actors, which did involve a conspiracy, which did involve a massive cover-up by the Warren Commission, which included both J. Edgar Hoover and Allen Dulles, as well as nominally the Supreme Court Chief Justice Warren, who basically didn't even attend very much, turning it all over to Dulles. And by the sheer weight of insiders sitting on the panel, they were able to get through it with the absolutely ridiculous single gunman theory that made, our famous patsy, Lee Harvey Oswald, the lone assassin. And that story is just not believable. So It's been my contention ever since I started the show and ever since I started, sharing my opinion on this, and this is just my opinion. You could prove me wrong. I'd be glad to be wrong, but that the government of the United States that existed from the death of President Kennedy forward to now is not the government that was created under the Constitution. This is simply the coup rolling on, and they change management. They change the names on the offices. They change the political party. But it's all been stage managed from behind ever since they took control of the presidency with Lyndon Johnson. And there's no doubt in my mind that Lyndon Johnson knew that it was a coup, and he should never have been respected as a president of the United States. Under the law, he couldn't possibly be because he participated in the cover-up. See, he was committing an ongoing act of fraud on us, the American people, by such things as taking the oath of office, which was just a setup to give us the impression that something official had changed hands. But I don't see anybody recognizing that fact in academia or in politics or anywhere. And that I attribute to the force, the hidden hand, that Woodrow Wilson spoke of, that the most sophisticated businessmen that he knows would not speak of this hidden power above their breath. That's what he said. And so this hidden power, which I perceive to be the power behind the Federal Reserve and the other encroachments upon our liberty and freedom and taking over our economy, I see this as the actions of that same hidden hand, the one that is attached, through the Carnegie and the Rockefellers, ultimately to the great banking interests of Europe. And that's my opinion, okay? Maybe YouTube will say, well, John's wrong. Well, okay, then tell me why you think I'm wrong. Or maybe YouTube will say, well, that's, dangerous talk. You can't talk that way. That's, well, if I can't, then you're just telling me that the republic is over, that, like I'm saying, you're just confirming exactly my opinion. And that is that this republic doesn't operate anymore. It's kind of in a sleeping status because it's, in a way, it's like they took all the furniture out of the building and it's standing there naked as an institution, but it's nothing actually happening in the wheels of government that reflect the operation of a constitutional republic anymore. It's all been carved up and parceled out and cartelized and blackmailed and set up so as to, while giving the facade, the appearance of a republic or a democracy, it's not anymore. And it hasn't really been since November 22nd, 1963. So one of my friends suggested that, well, maybe the reason that the troops are around the Capitol is because the leadership is really afraid that they saw an example on January 6th of how easy it is for a mob to break into the Capitol. And so they said, hey, we're afraid that could happen again. And so they decided, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to call in the National Guard, and we're going to call in, the real guys, the 10th Mountain Division, and we're going to call in, real troops. And what did they have? 30,000, 65,000. I saw today they said that they're only going to be there another month. Okay, well, what excuse do they have for doing this to the people's house, for doing this to the Congress of the United States, of the freest country in the world? What excuse could they possibly have? That they're afraid? It's not. It's not an argument that I could possibly defend. How could it possibly be that the very seat of government of the most powerful country in the world has cowards sitting in it, and that they're actually really afraid that they, the most powerful people in the world, cannot control their very own legislative house? How can they possibly be that afraid? That, and they own the whole Capitol Hill police force. Not only that, but they can call on the Metropolitans, they can call on the Secret Service. There's umpteen million, I don't know how many police forces we have in association. We have FBI police, we have transit police, we have got in Washington, D.C., plenty of police. You don't need to call in the military. See, if this was a crowd management problem, if this was a worry that the next crowd is going to be bigger and bring bigger sticks and have firearms and things like that, then you're saying that the Secret Service is no good, the FBI doesn't know what they're doing, the CIA didn't anticipate the foreigners coming in, the DIA screwed everything up. There's not a single competent person in the entire defense of the United States, including the capital of the United States, including the most sacred place in the capital of the United States. There's not one single competent military or police official that can protect the legislature of the free world. Are you kidding me? So this reminds me of, I really try to avoid the Act of 1871 thing, but it has gotten so much that I think it's important to say something about it. First of all, if you haven't read the law, please don't talk about it, because you're just passing on gossip. If you think you know what the law says, but you haven't read it, then you are wrong. And why is this important to me, to John? Why does John care? Because when you buy into this stuff and generate it on social media, you are increasing the case that the liberal side says, the Biden people will say, that the Clinton Biden folks will say, look, there's this cult of people that have adopted this crazy interpretation of the District of Columbia Reorganization Act of 1871, and they think the presidency is not decided until March the 4th. See? So if they can say that there's a whole bunch of people out there on the internet talking about how something's going to happen on March the 4th, then they get a justification to continue their military occupation. Nobody has accepted my challenge to read that law and then explain to me how they can possibly claim that that creates a corporation and the United States is now a corporation. And that's why it's important. Because folks, if you go down the Q road or the whatever conspiracy theory road it is, it's not just your loss. It's you're adding comfort to the enemy by letting them build up the case that, hey, there's all these people out there that are saying that March the 4th. The March the 4th thing, I see somebody asked me, what's the March the 4th thing? That used to be the, and in the Constitution, it says that the inauguration is to happen on March the 4th. But, and I can't remember who changed it right now, but one of the presidents changed it to January 20th. And I don't know why. I can't remember why. But it really is the case that if you look at the Constitution, it says, I don't know, the first Sunday or Monday or whatever in March, maybe. I don't have the language in front of me. But this idea that everything that's happened has just been a fraud and that the real white hats are going to appear and, the the Proud Boys will come back or something crazy like that sustains their ability to create the myth that they do in their papers and in their TV and in their websites, and they do it all the time. This myth that people who voted for Trump are involved in some type of a cult. Pardon me. All right, Andy, thank you, buddy. 1937, Franklin D. Roosevelt became the first president sworn into office in January. Well, I don't know if anybody ever litigated the legality of that, but at this point, it's kind of custom, and I don't think the American people would buy it. If suddenly a movement arose to say, hey, guess what? All that was just a sham. It's really going to happen in March. Nah, I don't see the American people buying that, and I don't buy it, and I don't think you should either. And that's why I really do hope that if you want to talk about that law, first thing you do is you go and read it. All right, thanks. But, getting back to what's been going on now, what's been going on now, it does seem to be consistent with the Great Reset. And it does seem to be consistent with the idea of keeping the population locked down. And it does seem to be consistent with the idea of reducing our energy usage. And all that fits in very well with the propaganda about environmentalism and how we need to cut down our carbon economy and stop using carbon because it generates too much CO2. And all of that just seems to be moving along right on schedule. The old train is just chugging right along the way they planned it out. And the route has been laid, the track has been laid, the press is ready. The advanced people have told you, the train's coming, and that train that's coming is going to be pitched as saving the planet, but in fact, it's all about, you know, preserving, protecting, and defending the wealth of the elites that control our economies. There's no shame in changing your mind. I mean, I see, Don, you're saying, well, you're sorry that you bought into it. Well, heck, I bought into it too. Why wouldn't you? I mean, I remember going to see the Al Gore movie and the hockey stick thing and thinking, oh my God, poor Al Gore's cows, are, we've got to do something. We've got to slow down our economy. We got to stop polluting. Well, isn't that just the most devilish satanic thing about it is they get these guys that have all this credibility. He went to Georgetown Day School, by the way, and his father was the guy that went along with Arm& Hammer, and the Al Gore Senior. Those guys, they would control the budget of the United States on some senatorial commission, but they're not working for us. Well, and looking back at Bush versus Gore, remember that mess? And it was like I was hoping that Gore would win, because I hated Bush, but now I'm not sure we didn't get off better with Bush when you realize the scope of what these Rockefeller-based Green Revolution folks are capable of doing, because it's a completely amoral idea of, born of Malthusian mathematics and Galtonian genetics. It's all pseudoscience. It's all fake. It's all a fantasy that's been produced with such realism as to create in our minds the fear that it's real. This idea that we've screwed up the weather of the planet by burning so much fossil fuels, and now we're in a tragedy and we've got to alter the environment in order to fix what we've done, because it's all our fault. And then they pull the whole youth people are smarter than old people thing again, so that people that have historically, through thousands and thousands, if not millions of years, looked to their elders for advice in times of difficulty or stress, are now being taught to look to their youth for advice in times of difficulty or stress. I saw this thing I won't say where, on the internet the other day, but it was in a foreign country, and the filmmaker was going through a local elementary school, asking kids what they thought about things, and they had the pictures of the kids, like, isn't it time we asked the children? I said, no, it's not time to ask the children. It's time for the adults to grow up. It's time for the adults to ask the hard questions of other adults. It's time for those folks that got great educations and specialized in something, whether it be, ethnomusicology of Ethiopia, or, the biology of the rarest fly in Nicaragua, or whether it's about, physical chemistry, or whether it's about psychology or human sociology, or whatever it is that they got so good at. The big fraud was that they thought that they could be the part of the solution when all of these great experts were put together, and we'd have this great, this world of expertise in which we'd say, hey, how do you stop Lyme disease? And somebody over across the world would say, oh, I worked on that. Here's how you stop Lyme disease. No, they didn't want us to do that. They don't want us to talk to each other like that. They want their experts to be stovepiped, so that if I want to know how to stop Lyme disease, I go and ask my doctor. My doctor hasn't got a clue. Maybe my doctor asks somebody up there and they end up at the AMA or some clinic or some foundation, the Rockefeller Lyme Disease Foundation, and they get the biggest experts on the world, in the world to tell you that, hey, we just really can't fix that yet. Well, I don't care how many letters you have after your name, Dr. FACPSGP, whatever. I want you to do the science. I want you to explain the science to me. Why can't you solve this? Because what I suspect is that there's somebody in some other stovepipe out there that knows exactly how it got created, exactly where it came from, and probably was under the impression that in creating it, they were working on an important vaccine to save lives. That's my opinion. But those two stovepipes will never be connected because the people in the middle are control freaks. There's the super control freaks of all time that want us all to be connected like the Borg with some type of computer or microwave communication, reading the vibrations inside of our cells and the A waves and the alpha waves and just scientifically putting us into, grabbing us with the tweezers and putting us under the microscope and seeing how we tick and not caring if they have to pull us apart to understand us because why shouldn't they? Who's going to stop them? Hey, B, you say the sound just went down? Let me boost it up a little bit for you. There you go. I might have just been off mic. Sometimes as you do this, you learn you got to stay right in front of that mic, or else if you go over here, then you might not get heard. Well, yeah, who is going to stop them? That's light. That's my question. Who is going to stop them? And it's the only chance that we have is through doing what we're doing right now, and that is communicating with one another and saying, look, Henry Kissinger has been running our foreign policy and, not on our behalf, for how long? Some people think, oh, he's over the hill. He's not. They have ways of keeping people going. And I'm sure he takes advantage of whatever ways they are. Sometimes I think they all got contracts, I get to live to 100. Well, I get to live to 101. It's in the contract. As long as you do their bidding, as long as you help extinguish all the possibilities of nature and human ingenuity to ever conceive of a way to take away their power. That's what you got to do. You got to do whatever it takes to bamboozle us, whatever it takes to rob us, whatever it takes to keep us confined into little cities instead of expanding out into the countryside and creating our own wealth. So, as I've been saying here ever since I started this show, the result of my research yields me the opinion that the assassination of President Kennedy was a coup d'etat, and it was orchestrated by the CIA and foreign forces allied with big money and big oil, and that it was a installation of a government from behind the scenes that, despite the wonderful, propaganda that was put out about Jimmy Carter and, any of the good things that you can say that any of our presidents have done, consider it like the Rockefellers giving some money away to a charity, or even go back to the original big propaganda, which was when John D. himself went on a propaganda campaign to carry around a pocket with dimes in it and to be caught on camera, candidly, right, accidentally, just meeting somebody on the street and telling them what a good person they are. And by the way, here's a dime. And they got this shiny silver dime and with a smile. And that's all he had to do, was to give away dimes. But it maybe cost him $100 over his whole lifetime, right? But what did he get for the propaganda? I was just watching a really good expose of Bill Gates, and the same thing happened with him. When he was just this aggressive entrepreneurial business guy that was, and again, there's so many cases where somebody's business partner dies early of cancer. So his business partner, in the early supposed, Microsoft, got cancer. And while he had the cancer, that Gates was crowding him out of his partnership share and got control of the whole corporation. And things like that type of, why would he do that other than that he was supposed to, he had to, had to do that. So, because they wanted to control that corporation. And, his dad was part of the elite, the money. Well, there came a time when he started getting so much money that he had a public relations problem. And so that's when, boom, they started giving away money. Giving away $1 billion to Africa. Well, that sounds great. So he got a whole lot of great publicity out of that and started investing in vaccines. And vaccines, of course, becomes his real key to success. By investment of, like, maybe, what was it, I can't remember the numbers exactly, but it was like $10 billion that he invested, and it grew to $200 billion just because he invested in all these vaccines. And what is it now? 200 billion, 200 trillion? Why did he invest in vaccines? Instead of, if he wanted to do something for the public, why didn't he invest in public health clinics for every, community in the country? Why he's not a doctor? Why didn't he hire a staff of doctors and say, hey, what's the best thing we can do with $10 billion? No, he was an investor and he knew what he was investing in. He knew very well what he was investing in. And so now he has this great public persona, and he can easily go out there and say, hey, that we're not going to get back to normal until virtually everybody has been vaccinated. And everybody's in it. It's like he's got the right color sweater on and everything. Just like John D. Rockefeller handing out a dime in a staged presentation, getting incredible public relations out of it. Hmm. Vaccine technology. I'm looking at what Andy's posted there, and oh my! And the people of Africa are sadly becoming aware of what's going on with these experiments. Taking people as guinea pigs, and it's all happening, because our Congress allows this deception to happen, and because our people don't know about this deception that's happening, and because of Henry Kissinger and the NSSM 200 that we've talked about so often when we reviewed William Engdahl's book, Seeds of Destruction, last Wednesday night, for instance. The importance of that, and now we tie that statement to the statement of George F. Kennan in 1947 about how we, in order to retain our higher standards of living and our hegemony in the world, have got to attack the other places in the world. And I should get it out and read it to you, but you've probably heard me read it enough times, that what he says is basically we cannot be chivalrous in dealing with the overpopulation problems in other countries. They are a national security threat to us. And if there's not a direct connection between 1947, George F. Kennan saying that, who is a functionary of Wall Street, clothed in the diplomatic garb of the State Department, directly to Henry Kissinger in whatever it was, 62 or so, gets the president to sign, maybe it was Ford, I don't remember who it was, this memorandum that said, basically, our national security depends upon the depopulation of worlds, of places in the world where we feel threatened. And it's simple as that. So our national security policy has been to help the Rockefellers get the people out of the way so they could get at the oil, at the minerals, at the gold, at the uranium, in fulfillment of their destiny, which is to own everything in the world. Yes, we are being depopulated too. I agree with you, S-Light, and that's another of the things that we turned up as I was reading and working on these, the connection between my dad's life and the tragedy of our country is when you talk to a Ted Shackley and you see, somebody like him, he doesn't believe in democracy. He doesn't believe in anything except for how, excuse me, pardon me. He doesn't believe in human rights or anything. He just wants to know how to get ahead. And there's a quote of him saying that, we're so good at taking down these foreign countries. Why don't we just do it here? And that brings up, the question of the Phoenix program, which is the subject of Doug Valentine's great classic. Here it is right here. And the question in this book is, well, what's going to happen when the Phoenix program comes home to roost? And as we saw down at National Harbor with that great big statuary that is the image of a phoenix, it is coming home to roost. And in the form of this soft coup, this snowy background, kind of don't pay attention to it. It's just normal that we have military instead of police guarding the Capitol. It's not normal. It's a complete violation of the intention of the founding fathers. Our Congress has to be the people's house. It can't be a military compound. It just can't be. So they say the National Guard's going home in a month. And I do hope that they keep that. But I don't necessarily trust what's coming out of Washington right now. And I'm not sure anybody else really should either. Power is the greatest aphrodisiac. Maybe so, but they also have other stuff now too. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say today, was that, this is not the first coup of my lifetime. This is a rearrangement of the furniture. It's an encroachment upon the remaining liberties of our country, and it is an attempt to set up a reason to impose a greater restrictions even than we have now, and to transfer the lockdown from a medical emergency to a national security emergency. How hard is it for them to just say, look at the Capitol, the Congress, they're scared. We need to lock down the whole country, not just the Capitol. And if we allow our representatives to be locked down, we're basically saying lock down us, lock down our government, lock down everything. So there has to be more and more talk about, is this a coup? I say undo the coup. And I'm not talking about January 6th, and I'm not talking about November the 3rd, and I'm not talking about anything recent, because everything that's happened since the coup, the conspiracy that killed President Kennedy and took over our government in 1963, everything has been just changes in management of the rolling coup. And I'm sorry to tell you that, but that's my opinion. And everybody wants to resist that idea, and nobody wants to talk about it. But I say it's time to talk about it. Undo the coup. Thanks, everybody.